So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the process of taking a TrueType Rhinestone font and then creating a template of our font that we can utilize to create different words. So for example, I already have the finished product right here, and it's actually a bit more involved than you might imagine. So bear with me and just follow along so you can see how this goes. So let's say, for example, I have a customer that comes in and they want the name Karen. All right. What I would do is I would grab my K and my A, and I have an R here, and my E, and my N. Okay. So then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually line these all up at the baseline. Okay. And in doing so, now I have my name with the word Karen. Now we can cut this out of sticky flock, we can cut this out of our color flock rhinestone template material, which is very, very similar to sticky flock. You can use sandblast material. The process, the actual rhinestone template material you use could be anything. All right, but what we need to do is create these little weed boxes around each and every letter so that when we line them up, they line up the way we would expect. Now, if you look at some of the letters, most of the time you're going to line up the baseline. Okay, now like if you noticed, when I line up my letter A here, my letter A is a little bit shorter than the letter K, but that's not relevant. What's relevant in this situation is the baseline. But with certain letters, like our letter G, that we're going to align to the top, not to the bottom. So, there's a little bit of work involved in getting this all set up properly, and that's really what we're going to focus on to show you how you would do it with Easy Stone, in part how you would do it in CorelDRAW. Having some type of automation to automatically do it for you is really the more preferred method. So what we're going to do is grab our text tool here, and we're just going to start. And we're going to choose a font, our rhinestone font that we want to work with. And so we're going to choose our ES Curls font, and we're just going to come in here, and I'm going to start by just typing out the entire alphabet. So now I have my uppercase letters. So now we're going to move on to our lowercase. And then finally, for this particular font, we also have numbers. So let's go ahead and type out our numbers. Okay. So that takes care of the first phase. Now we do want to do it all in a line, just like you see here. Now this font is a little bit special, and it's special because in most of the time, and that's why I wanted to show you with this font, most of the time your capital letters are going to be the same height. Well, you can very clearly see in this particular case the capital letters aren't the same height by design. So that further complicates the process when we go to create our font template. So all of our letters will line up the way they were intended to. Alright, you can see like the letter G and the letter Y here comes way down. So that's something that we kind of have to account for. So right now we have all the letters on one baseline, which is exactly what we want. The next thing we want to do is add some space between our letters, and a fair bit of space too. So let's come over here to our character or our paragraph formatting, and the space between characters, let's just start it off 200%. Alright, that may be a bit extreme, so maybe we could get by with 75%. and even that might be a bit much. So let's just try 25%. Yeah, 25%. That's good. All right. So now we have a little bit of space between each letter in order to add our weed box. So then the next thing that we need to do in this process is go ahead and break apart our letters so every single dot is its own. So what we're going to do then in that case is we're going to go ahead and select our entire letters there and come over to editing and choose break our text. So now every single dot within our lettering is one object. Now you can see that these aren't perfect circles. Okay, so we're going to turn those into perfect circles. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to select all of our circles. And I know approximately this font should be approximately 2 inches tall because I've worked with it enough. And my stone size for this font template is going to be 3.3. So I'm going to come over here and hit resize replace, and that's going to change every single circle for every single letter and number. Okay, now if I zoom in here, you're going to see this. We have perfect circles, but in certain cases stones are a little bit too close together. Okay, so I know that I have to make these a little bit bigger. So let's go 2.3 perhaps and hit resize replace. And then I'm just going to look at the spacing between the stones. You can see it's definitely increased, pretty uniform across, and that's exactly what I was looking for. Alright, so now the next thing, I'm going to give these a different color. We'll do the lighter color of gray. And here's where it gets interesting. This is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to select every letter, come over here to the miscellaneous tab. Now the amount of space between the letters, that's something that you have to decide. Alright, so I typically use about 2 millimeters. So when I put my weed margin here and I hit my add weed box, you can see I have that gap. So then like if I had the letter B, now you can see that gap. So then this connected together, you can see you'd have this gap is doubled. Okay, so I need to do this add weed box function for every single letter. Alright, so make sure you have the entire letter selected, choose add weed box, and it will add the weed box accordingly. Now, the way this is calculating the weed box is based on the object. So you can see now if I were to line up this F, these letters are all lined up like they're supposed to be. But if I lined up the bottom or the top, then you could see that the letters would shift up and down. So here's what we need to do. Let's first of all add a weed box to every single letter. Thank goodness we only have to do this once, because it is a fairly long process. But once you understand how it all works, you can go through it pretty quickly. Now we have this nifty function in EasyStone for adding a weed box. I don't know of any other Rhinestone software that has that function, but we have it. And we're actually going to be adding a new function to do this whole process, just one click of a button, and that's it. But in the meantime, if you want to be able to take some of the Rhinestone fonts you have and make a font template, so you'll be able to create words and things, without creating a separate template for every word that you want to make, that's the beauty of having a font template. So we're just going to do this for every single letter. We're doing both uppercase and lowercase letters. And no one showed me how to do this. So I'm just showing you the way I tackled it. There may be other ways to do it, but this is just kind of how I learned how to do it, just strictly by trial and error. So what we're doing is we're adding this 2 mm margin. You can see all the way across top, bottom, left, and right. So that's the first process. We want to do it with all the letters and with all the numbers. Okay. And then we'll finish off the numbers here. Now the numbers, well, at least in this case, I'm going to do the numbers separate from the letters. Because typically, you know what, I tell you what, let's not do it that way. That's the way I would probably do it if I were making this for myself, but let me not show you that way. Let me just show you the way I think it will make the most sense to you. Alright, so now we have a weed box around every single letter, around every single number. The letters themselves, and you can see just by looking at it, up and down and around and through, right? But the letters themselves are all lined up with the baseline like they're supposed to be. The boxes around the letters, however, go up and down, up and down, up and down with the size of the letter for this particular font. Okay, so this font definitely makes it more challenging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, let's just start with our capital letters. I'm going to pull down a guideline and snap it to what I think is the tallest object in my capital letters. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to what I think is the lowest most point of my capital letters. I think you can see that, right? Makes sense so far if you look at just the capital letters. So let me just zoom in tight here. So yes, my J does appear as I look at my capital letters as the tallest object for my capital letters. Now if I look here, there's Y. The guideline is right on Y. And over here, the guideline is below G. So yes, Y is the letter that is down the furthest. Now what I want to do is I want to just scan across and look at my letter F on lowercase is actually higher than the tallest point of the uppercase. So I'm going to move the guideline to my letter F now. And I keep going across. Letter T is lower. Perfect. Okay, so now I know of all of my upper and lowercase letters in this font, the letter F lowercase is the tallest object. Now we're going to do the same process for the bottom. So we know that Y is the lowest object in the uppercase. Are any of my other letters here? Is that an issue going across on lowercase? Aha, lowercase y is a little bit lower. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move that guideline down to the end of my lowercase y. Okay, so now the next thing I can decide on, I have like a top point and a bottom point already defined. So like for example, on my letter Y here for my uppercase, I will take my weed box here and pull it down to that guideline. If I go to the view menu, make sure that snapped guidelines is turned on, and then I could decide what we want to do. Either we could, for example, let me just show you, we could add top and bottom like that for every single letter. See, then you could just line them up. And you know, for the uppercase, maybe that won't be such a dumb idea. Let's just go ahead and try that. Just do that for every single letter. We're just going to add. So now we know that when we line these letters up, because we haven't moved the letter at all, we just know that no matter what letter we line up to, they're all the same height. They're vary in width, which is fine because that doesn't matter. But we know that all these letters have that one baseline. Okay. Now, what I did is I went through and I decided, when I looked at these letters in the uppercase anyhow, I added the extra material to the top. Okay, so I wanted to come all these letters, I wanted to match the tallest most point for my uppercase lettering. So this is, I'm just going to show you what I did. So every single one I pulled up and made it a little bit taller. So just do that for every single one. So you can see this is a bit tedious, but I want to show you the process and the payoff at the end when it's all done. So when you go to websites that have all this prep work done, this is how they had to do it. They had to do it all manually. All this prep work all has to be done manually to create these lineup font templates. We're going to fix that though, because I don't want to ever have to do this again. I just want to be able to push a button and have it happen for me magically. I just have to think about how to program it to make it work in every scenario. But I have a pretty good idea. Alright, so that's the first step, okay, for the uppercase. And then what I basically did for my lowercase is, you could go ahead and extend this line down so that these were all snapping to the same line. That's one way of doing it. Or you could just pull down a guideline and cut it off somewhere. It doesn't really matter where, but here's the point. If I pull down, see that red guideline, what I want to make sure of is going across to the lowercase letters. That's going to be, that secondary line is going to be my new baseline for my lowercase. So here's what just like I said, this is just what I decided to do, because you got to do something, okay? So what I decided to do is every single letter had the same top. So all of my lowercase letters also got stretched to the top, to the same guideline that all of my uppercase letters. And then my lowercase letters just got a little bit of an extension at the bottom. And I do that all the way across. So let's just go ahead and do that all the way across. The letter itself never moves, just the box around it. So letter F. So now my letter G, okay, it extends below, but that's okay, because we always have that stationary point. In this case, we're going to, when I place my G, rather than place it at the baseline, I know I can snap it to the top and still have perfect alignment. So I'll show you that here, how that works in a moment, once we actually get all this set up. Now my letter G, I had to pull that down. I wouldn't have to, but I'm going to snap to the lowest most point. But for sure, it has to go all the way down. This goes right down to there. But on the lowercase, it always goes to the top. No matter what, always goes to the top. And then at the bottom, we're going to use that baseline that I set for the bottom, pull it to the top. So you can see it's a lot of work because we're doing both upper and lowercase. So our letter P here, we're going to extend to the top, and we're going to extend a little bit to the bottom. We don't actually use the bottom on our P, our Q, our J. We're going to use the top. So really, this does not have to be extended to the bottom, but we're just going to have all of our letters basically one of two sizes, just because that's the way I want it. Alright, and again, I promise you, stick with me. This will all make more sense once you actually get to see this in use, and I'll show you how it all works so you understand it perfectly. So just have a few more letters here. Okay, so our Y is our lowermost point in our lowercase. So there's the Z. So you can see how much extra space we have for our Z, but that's okay. You know, we have a lot of extra height there, but that's all right. Now, as I was saying before, I'm not going to waste the time doing these numbers, but as I was saying before, what I would probably do on the numbers is pick the tallest point of the numbers and the lowest point of the numbers and go ahead and use that rather than use the same baseline for my lettering. But you know, that's really mostly up to you. So what we're going to do, rather than have all this extra template material there, I'm going to pull this all up. Because you have to keep in mind when we're cutting out this sticky flock material, this color flock material, our rhinestone template material is not cheap. You know, whether you're using our color flock material or if you like sticky flock, it's you know, both materials are fairly expensive. So you want to minimize the amount of, you know, template material you're using. So we have to finish our uppercase letters here and pull those down to that baseline that we created, that secondary baseline. Again, we wouldn't necessarily have to do it this way because we do have that top of our letter, no matter whether it's an uppercase or lowercase, that is absolute. So we're always going to line up based on the top of our letter in this particular case. So we wouldn't need this extra material, but when I'm making my font, I like to have all of my letters, really I like to have them all the same size when I'm making my templates, or at least just two different sizes. So when it actually goes to cut out my template, it actually cuts out very nicely. So, alright. So there we have, oh, that's a little bit. So let me just show you now that we have all these lined up like we're supposed to. All of our letters line up at the top. All of our letters line up at the bottom, except a couple of longer letters like the G, the J, the P, the Q, the Y's, okay? But otherwise everything lines up like it's supposed to. So let's just say, for example, I want to have the word green. Let me just show you how this would work. We're going to pull out, there's our G, right? And then here's our R. And what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and drag this out, is we're going to take the top and line it up to the top. So there's GR. And then we're going to do E. Right? And then we're going to do E again. And then we'll do N. So you can see when we line these up, all of our lowercase letters are one size, but now when I go in and delete our weed box, you can see now how we've created the word green. Alright? And everything lines up just exactly like it's supposed to. Now, let's just say we want to create a different word. Okay, so imagine all this cut out of color flock material or sticky flock material, and now I want to do my name. So there's our K, right? So we'll go ahead and pull over our K. And then we know we need an E. So again, we would snap it to the top. So there's K-E-V, we need a V. So there's our V. And then we need an I and an N. So we'll just pull those templates. And again, we would line all these up to the top, or in this case we could align them all to the bottom as well because they're all the same height. Right, and then we'll delete our weed boxes and see what kind of transfer we made. So now you can see we have the word Kevin, and that looks perfect. It's all lined up just exactly the way it's supposed to be. So I think you can see through that exercise how once you've created all these weed boxes around each individual letter, you'll be able to make your own font templates with any TrueType font that you have on your computer. Thanks for watching.